Hey everybody, welcome to the Barely Rested podcast. I'm your host, Daniel, aka DC, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Kaz. In this podcast, we will highlight the hustle within, the drive that keeps people moving forward ever closer to their dreams and goals, as well as the setbacks and the triumphs along the way. We're proud to be sponsored by Barely Rested Media. Let us help you bring your vision to the world screen. Sophia Lane. Sophia Lane is the place you go for comfy clothing and home decor. Come take a trip down Sophia Lane. And hashtags media. We keep your business trending. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We have a very special show today. I am joined here by my lovely co-host, Kaz.
What's up?
And the individual that we have on today's show is a very special guest. I'm going to read an insert from his website. Mr. Rodney Duckett is a motivational speaker and community advocate who works with underserved populations by providing direction, education, and orientation in an uncertain world. Following his calling, Rodney believes that the voiceless, disadvantaged population deserves to be heard. He works as a mouthpiece for urban youth, speaking from the heart of the community. With the distinct ability to encourage and empower individuals, Rodney has helped countless people move beyond past prejudices, let go of negative thinking, and take on new, exciting challenges. Whether he is speaking about mental health, setting goals, gangs, or the Black community, his audience always walks away feeling refreshed and strengthened with actionable strategies for positive change. Utilizing his charisma, passion, and knowledge, Rodney has shared his expertise with thousands of those in underserved populations, from at-risk youth to disabled veterans. I welcome to the show, Rodney Duckett. Welcome.
Oh man, that sounds like I'm getting ready to run for election right there. I'm going to have to shorten that. The person that wrote that for me was like, this sounds so good. But when you read it, I'm like, who are you talking about? Are you talking about me? No, you can't be talking about me.
Oh, it sounds so good though.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on the show. There is so much to go over. There's so much that you do. First off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm a transplant from this area. I transplant from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I joined the military. This was my last duty station. Got out here. The cost of living was phenomenal back in the later 90s. So
right.
I just stayed here. I bought a couple of homes and just kind of hung out in this area. I didn't want to go anywhere else, and through that, I just kind of grown to do different things in this area. By trade, a lot of people don't know I work in the medical field. I've been a nurse for 20 years, and now I'm a nurse practitioner. I have a doctorate in nursing practice, so that's how I kind of make my bread and butter. But then there's a different side of me, which is the community side that I truly love. That is the community side is my true work.
Right.
My job is nursing. They can fire me from nursing my job, but they can never fire me from my work.
True.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And you went to school in San Antonio? Is that correct?
Yeah, I got my doctorate at a place called University of Incarnate Word. It's this old parish that turned into a university. It's a unique history there. The sisters that came over from France came over during the bad cholera epidemic and created a parish and an orphanage and all of that, and it grew into a university. It's a beautiful, beautiful campus. It's expensive as heck, but it's a beautiful campus. It really is. So, yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's awesome.
So what you learned there at the in San Antonio, did that roll over into what you're trying to do now? So it's osteopathic medicine, is that correct?
No, I have a doctorate in nursing practice. I'm a generalist, which is a family nurse practitioner. I see everything from birth to death.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
My skill set right now, especially, I work in the emergency room. I've been doing that for years. So, and then I do community stuff, education on the side. So, yeah.
Wow.
How did you get involved in the community?
Community has always been embedded within my family. It started with my mother. She was a master librarian. She worked at a small library called Suburban Acres Library, and they had all these after school programs that was there. And when you're embedded with this type of stuff, and your mom does it, it becomes a little bit of who you are. So being in the military and then working around the community was kind of natural for me,
Right.
because that's all I'd done from 2 years old until I left my mom's house, was do something in the community. That was my playground, the community. So different events and stuff like that.
Now, I wanted to talk, there's so much to talk about. There really is. But I wanted to talk about iYouth on YouTube and the videos. There was the message that it brings.
Yeah.
And I know we're jumping ahead here a little bit, but the message that it brings, there was one in particular with Antonio Johnson. He was a single father.
Yes.
And I watched that video, and what hit home was when he was talking about his sons and talking about, instead of telling them, hey, be a man, don't cry.
Yeah.
He was trying to explain to them how to properly show emotions.
Yes.
And that change from within, the change from the household. I love that approach, that message. It was just really refreshing to see him trying, and just, there's a lot of times, I know a lot of people that would have just bailed.
Yes.
Yeah. And to actually have examples of strong men, strong people doing that and giving a proper message, that's rare, and it's not easy.
Yeah, it is. That episode is very powerful. The gentleman that does our production, Terrence, Antonio was a neighbor of him, and we talked about him in a pre-production meeting, bringing him on board to have a different outlook of what a father's role is. More importantly, a single father's role. There's a lot of emphasis that's placed on single mothers, but
Right.
there is a small population of single fathers that is out there. I learned a lot from Antonio that day, just in that interview, and also working with him, that being a single father can be a very complicated thing, because a lot of times the mothers have to take the masculine energy and then the feminine energy and then roll that in. But I think it's a little difficult for men to take that feminine energy in and say, okay, it's okay to cry. When our job is like, man, stop crying and toughen up.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah. So I learned a lot from him and how he conducts himself with his kids. And his kids are, they're smart, intelligent kids. To see that from a single home of a mother or father, it doesn't matter. It's just wonderful. So,
yeah. I was really impressed. There's some great messages. There was one also from Dr. Claude Anderson.
Yes.
And he said so much in that video, but there was one, a job is not designed to enrich you.
Yes.
And it's just paycheck to paycheck. I think he said you're only one paycheck away from welfare,
Yes.
And we talk about that with entrepreneurs and everybody on the grind, just trying to do something better than.
Yes.
And I think personally that old American dream, that old template is really doesn't apply anymore.
No, it doesn't. Now, Dr. Claude Anderson is a very close friend of mine's, a great mentor. A lot of knowledge that he has in his head. And basically what he done was he took a snapshot of everything that was wrong with African Americans and how we can make everything right with African Americans. So instead of positive focus on all the negative stuff, which is important, he took an outlook and said, where's the voids and where's the hole, and how do we fill it, and how do we make money from this?
Right.
And that's the most important thing moving forward. It's the same way with the kids on the street. The kids on the street see an opportunity with drugs, and it's a market for them. So it's a hole, and then they make their money. So Claude Anderson is teaching the reverse from that. If you see a man that has no shoes, start thinking about making a shoe company.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
anytime where there's anything that's disenfranchised is an opportunity. So yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was a great video to watch, and it just screamed, just independence.
Yes.
Make your own money, make your own way,
Mm-hmm.
do it. And, I know growing up that hit home because it was just get a good job, get the house, get the family and all that, and then be happy.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Things have a way of, evolution has a way of changing. My dad was a blue collar worker, and he worked for the oil refinery and Alaska pipeline. And when guys were making $30 an hour back in the 70s, that was great living.
Yeah.
That was great living, and my dad had, he excelled to the highest level possible that a person can excel to with, a 2-year degree, because that was golden when he was growing up. But then things begin to transition when you have kids that was graduating from Tulsa University with masters and PhD, in geology, and petroleum and things like that. So now they're coming on replacing my father, so you begin to see that, in the evolution of him was you just work hard in the system, you put your time in, you make your money. But nowadays you can follow that path, but the way things are working, you may be just out of a job if you hang around. You've got to have some tangible resources out there. You can't have your eggs all in one basket like my dad did at the time, because pensions don't exist anymore. So
no, they don't.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's very true. That's when we talk about entrepreneurship so often. And it seems like more and more people are becoming entrepreneurs lately, especially during COVID, for example, because people were just not down to be mandated for vaccines or whatever. And you saw a huge rise in new businesses in the last 2 years, according to the Census Bureau. So you can definitely see what evolution, how things progress. It's just insane.
Yes.
Now you have your webpage, Impact Outreach. Let's talk about that. Impact, Intelligent Minds Proving and Applying Commitment.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I got to give a plug to this lovely woman that you know very well. Hashtag over here. She's the one that created my website. Actually, I met your lovely wife. I think I've seen her before throughout the community, but I really locked horns with her with the Wilkersons during that campaign and stuff like that. So she does a wonderful job with that.
Thank you.
Yes. Impact, Intelligent Minds Proving and Applying Commitment is pretty much a nonprofit that focuses on 3 things in the community. The first thing that we focus on is that individual. How can we take that individual and begin to educate him and make him better? Number 2 is the family. How can we take that individual back to that family so that family can be recentered and educated around that individual? And then number 3, moving the family and the individual out to the community and how they can better impact the community. So basically that individual is that pebble in the pond that creates that ripple effect. And that's what we use that for. We're kind of noted for
amazing.
Thank you.
I love that.
We're noted for the jobs that we do inside the juvenile detention center. That's how we kind of, got our firm footing with that, where we work with those kids and we try to put them back in their homes and try to work with the family as much as possible and try to show them that they are an integral part of society. Because a lot of times people think when they're separated or there's issues or whatever in the family, they're frowned upon. We just try to teach them how to change. Old school, there's a negative, let's change it into a positive.
Right.
So,
right. And you don't see that a lot of days, especially in the exposure with social media and just the culture in general.
Yes.
It's so, I don't even want to say negative. I really don't know what to call it. I remember when I was a kid, and I talked about it before, it was just knowledge is power.
Yes.
The more you knew, the less they could do. And, if you want to get out, But I remember myself, there was a lot of friction because if you were too smart, you forgot where you came from. Okay. And then if you had a good job and you got paid a lot, you think you're better than, there was always some negative for a positive, and I've talked about this before. A lot of that just, I call it oppressive thinking.
Yeah.
And it truly is. Everything, that, even down to racism was all taught at a local level.
Yes.
And it's generational. And I always hear on the TV. You know, we got to stop this, we got to stop that. But I truly believe that it begins in the household.
Oh, yes.
If I want anything to change, it's got to change through my kids, and it's going to take a moment. If I give them a strong foundation, you know, hopefully, God willing, they take it and they do something good with it. You know,
yes,
against any kind of outside interference. You know?
Yeah, and you're 100% right about that. I use the American Dental Association model. There was a problem at one time when I was a kid growing up where kids had a lot of cavities, and they were trying to figure out ways to reduce the cavities that kids had. So they said, let's go the most inexpensive route. Let's have them brush their teeth after they eat at school, and teach them how to floss. Yeah. And it only took a few minutes. Cavity rates dropped. So it did. It dropped.
Wow.
And that's the basic concept around when you're at home with your kids. What do we tell them? Brush your teeth, floss, go to bed.
Yeah.
Don't eat anything before you go to bed. Just small little things. And that's what needs to happen in the household. Also what needs to happen at school. We have to take it back to that basic level of understanding. You know, when I was a kid growing up, one of the things that I do remember is being in a very diverse classroom. And while I was in a very diverse classroom, there was no color noted.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless someone brought color from their home into the classroom.
Yes.
You're black. You're Mexican. You're white.
Yeah.
So normally it came from the outside, because when you bring kids together, they don't care about anything. Maybe who has the ball longer than the next person, or you know, who's not listening, or he's too loud. It's just basic stuff. But then when you add in the external environment from the home, that's when we have a lot of the problems. So
it was crazy. When I was in high school, it was so segregated naturally. And in my high school, God, we had Vietnamese, Chinese, and Filipino, and just everybody. But everybody had a certain table. It was just broke up like that. And, you know, it was just, that's the way everybody was.
Yes.
Nobody thought any differently. But in elementary school, everybody got along. There was no differences, anything, you know, just as you got older. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I remember vividly when I was a kid growing up that a lot of times, because I was fortunate, and I say I was fortunate. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I grew up in what was called the Mecca, which is Black Wall Street. Greenwood was the area, very, 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 very prominent area where there was the average cost of living in that area in the 1920s was around $30,000.
Okay,
you know, so a lot of people invested in the economical portion of it. So when Dr. Clyde Anderson sometimes speaks of models, he sometimes model what's happening in Greenwood and these other black sectors, because they begin to realize that how important economics was to begin to use trade and commerce. So instead of waiting on what was happening around the segregation part, they said, okay, we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. How do we trade with Little Rock, Arkansas?
Right.
So they created their own pipeline to trade, which also brought up economics, which also had the black dollars bouncing within the black community, and it kind of raised and uplift that. So me growing up in that area, Tulsa, Oklahoma, you know, that was something that was always taught to us. But my mom was very smart, because my mom wanted me to get out of that environment to be more diversified. So we moved out of Tulsa. We moved to an area called Owasso, Oklahoma, which is kind of near Indian Reservation. But it was a new building up type community where my first friend that I met on the block was a white kid by the name of John McCoy. He had red hair and freckles, you know, which forged a relationship between me and him, because we were the same age.
Right.
Yeah, we were the same age. And I think that was so beneficial. And through that, I went to church with John at Oral Roberts University and took some leadership academies and got to see, you know, a whole different outlook on life. So, yeah.
Now, growing up, I always ask every guest, who were your childhood heroes? Who'd you look up to?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I'm a there's I got multiple personalities. My mother was a librarian, so I had so many mentors in books.
Right.
It was really crazy.
Cool. Right.
I think I initially started off with the old school Frankenstein, Dracula, black and white type books where I would read King Kong, Godzilla type things. And then later on, I would branch off into music. And I think music was kind of my foundation. I was believe it or not, I was so infatuated with blues singers.
Really?
I don't know why. They just seemed like they was the coolest guys in the world.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So, and I never learned how to play guitar because I'm not musically inclined, but I always wanted to learn how to play a guitar. So I loved like B.B. King and Howlin' Wolf and Bobby Blue Bland and Johnny Walker and all these other different guys. I just enjoyed them. So I would listen to a lot of their music, but also listen to the things that they were saying. And my uncle was heavy into music. He had a lot of different albums, and he was kind of like on the Chitlin circuit back in the day doing sound engineering and things. So those guys kind of became like a role model because it was a coolness about them. It was a swagger that I liked. And then later on I got into other things. I remember when I was a little boy, there was a gigantic book and I pulled it out and I asked my mom how do you say this word? I didn't know how to say this word. And my mom was like, well, I'm going to tell you something. There's Uncle Webster over there. Go over there and see Uncle Webster.
Yeah, yeah.
So
exactly.
I sat in front of Uncle Webster trying to figure out what this word meant. And, after probably 100 times of getting it right, because I didn't want my mom to embarrass me in front of everybody, I came to her and I said archaeology. And that was the basis of kind of my traveling mind at that time, because I would constantly go to that book because it was so gigantic, and all the places that I said that I wanted to go in that book, I probably went to at least 60% of them easily. So books were kind of like my mentors, kind of like the people. And then later on, there was, other people, Mr. Al Dunn, which was my mentor, my father, of course, other friends' fathers kind of took us in. It was mentoring and things like that. So, yeah.
Now, if you didn't have books growing up, how much of an influence did books have on you as far as opening your mind to the world or just in general?
Books took me to a place that if I wouldn't have had books, I would never have traveled the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember the first place that when I opened that book up to the A's, it was a place called I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia.
Oh.
And you went there?
And I went there.
Oh my God, that's cool.
I went there. I was so mesmerized with I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia because of the biblical presence of I.m.p.a.c.
Sure.
That I never knew Black people existed in the Bible until I went to I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia and said, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of Black people in the Bible. It's just not I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia. So I've been to I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia 4 times.
4 times?
4 times.
Wow.
And I say sometimes I'm not a super hyper religious individual, but I've been so blessed in I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia because there's things that personally I can say, when I'm an old man to my grandchildren, that there is a 1400-year-old Coptic Bible, which is Orthodox Christianity Bible, that I had the ability to touch and look at and read.
Wow.
There's only been 3 other people that's put their hands on that Bible besides me. One person, someone from the Vatican that I know anything about. The other 2 people, they're the most famous people in America, George Bush and Barack Obama.
Wow.
So how did you get to do that?
Well, the cool thing about Ethiopia, when I went to Ethiopia, because I'm African American, they don't see a lot of African Americans that's there. They see a lot of people coming from different countries. They're normally European. So I told them that I'm African American. I have a degree in biblical archaeology, and I'm here to learn more about the area. So when I went to the cathedral, which was St. Mary Cathedral, St. Mary's all over the place. When I went to St. Mary Cathedral, that's when one of the priests seen me and one of the monks seen me, and they became curious about me. And we had translation. We began to talk. And, they asked me how much did I understand about their culture and the religion. And I explained to them what I knew. And it was a tour. And the monk found that I had a very pleasant personality and I was a very kind-hearted individual. And he let me view the Bible.
Wow.
So cool.
And at that time, I didn't realize exactly what I was viewing. I knew it was old. I knew it was a relic, but I didn't know that Bush and also Obama actually viewed it, and some high priest from the Vatican is also.
Wow.
And the place by I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia, which is so unique about I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia, is I.m.p.a.c, Ethiopia is one of Solomon's sons. With Solomon and Sheba, they had a son, and that son went to Jerusalem, and he actually studied up under his father. He had a replica of the Ark of the Covenant, which he took back to Ethiopia, but he actually switched the Ark of the Covenant, the relic, and took the original one. So that's the folk behind it.
Oh,
So,
wow.
And it sits there.
It sits there. That's,
okay.
Yeah.
That's where that single monk guards it, and then he can't.
Yes.
And it's a lifetime commitment.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all he does.
That's all he does.
It's a building with a fence, and then from what I've seen on TV.
Yes.
But he comes out every now and then, and it's just a single monk, and he's there for, I don't know how they transfer power with the monks.
Yeah,
but,
the kid is selected at birth. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
But
he's
the ark is there.
Yeah.
And
That
he
is
guards
so
the ark, and nobody is allowed in.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That's-
And I tried to get in there. Yeah, that didn't happen. I wasn't that holier than that. So.
But there, if I remember correctly, their edition of the Bible is untouched from
Yes.
way back. It's not even with King James or anything. It's just original.
Yeah, it's original. The original language, now I'm getting into my biblical archaeology. The original language that was speaking from Babel is Ge'ez, is Ge'ez, which is Ge'ez. And that's one of their original languages. Now, it is still spoken there, but it's normally spoken by religious dignitaries of that area. Normally, monks have dedicated their life to reading and writing, almost like the scribes of the Bible when they were scribing the Bible, from different languages and different things like that. So there are a few kids that go through this channeling of understanding Ge'ez and what it is. But it's a language that's a dead language. And that's how some of those books are written in. And that Bible, that 1,400-year-old Bible, is written in Ge'ez. So
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
We had a couple shows back, and I got asked the question, if I could have a cup of coffee with anybody in history, who would it be? And I chose the librarian of the Library of Alexandria.
Ooh.
I would love to go and sit and visit that library and just hang out with
Daniel is in
with the head
massive
librarian.
love with history. He
Yes.
loves history.
Yeah.
Like he talks to me about things, and I'm like, do they have computers? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like no.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a lover of history too. I chose archaeology because that was my first love. I remember when I was going to the archaeology program, Stephen Van Warwick. If you ever want to go on an archaeological dig, Stephen, I think he's on sabbatical right now in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or wherever he may be. He used to teach at UMHB, now he's at Baylor. But every now and then he goes on digs and there's tours and stuff like that. So if that's something that you love, I'll send you his information whenever he's going again and go with him.
Yeah.
You'll probably love him because he speaks that language all day long.
Like local.
Oh my God, no.
Local.
Yeah,
Or traveling.
Oh, I'm talking about traveling, like on the plane going to Jerusalem. Land.
Oh man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love
yeah.
that.
I'd be
Yeah. So Stephen was cool. Dr. Wyrick was cool. I told him, I was like, oh man, I want to do archaeology full time. He's like, no man, do nursing because you'll never make any money in archaeology. Unless you do what I do. And he says, I have no hair, I'm fat, it's like, you don't want to do it. It's a lot of stress. He says, but I love Stephen because Stephen told me to merge my love for healthcare and archaeology together. So I actually went on some digs as a medic before.
Oh,
so
that's a
yeah,
great
so
idea.
that's helped me out, so I really enjoy that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah. So
kind of like how you're talking about Ethiopia. I remember reading about the Oregon Trail ruts in Independence Rock.
Yeah.
Went to Wyoming, and I remember seeing Independence Rock.
Yeah.
And it hit home. And then I got to see the Oregon Trail ruts and touch them.
Uh-huh.
I was like, man.
I know. And he goes,
wow.
Do you know what this is? And I said, no. No idea.
Like, oh my God. Everybody had written their names on it. And there was it was
I remember
it was pretty cool.
That was
history is so unique and it's been so tampered with in order to paint conclusions in people's minds of just the way it should be. And I think history should just let itself just evolve into what it truly is, a story, and that's how we learn from history. It's so unique. Like my history, like my dad's side is very difficult because they were slaves. Mm-hmm. But my mom's side, they were never slaves. And it's a very interesting history when I sat down and I looked at how we got all the way from Alabama, Georgia, and then how we got all the way from Africa, which was Chad area, and how we got here. It's just like, it blows my mind how things transpired, how we landed in Florida, which was a land that was occupied by Spain. And we set up inhabitants there, but just Georgia up the road was slavery.
Mm.
Yeah. And then how we banded with Indians, Native Americans, and how sometimes things get crossed, like the word Seminole is Cimarron, which Seminole has really nothing to do with Native Americans. Cimarron is for runaway slaves. Runaway slaves and some of the band slaves will come together, and that's how the Seminoles were created.
Really?
Yeah. So, but we see Seminoles as Indian because it's just the history of it and everything. But it's really a runaway slave. And the unique thing about Florida and my family and Alabama, and we start looking at it, is a lot of slaves like the Underground Railroad they used to talk about all the time was north. Mm-hmm. If you're in Georgia, the Underground Railroad is south. Because all you have to do is go to Florida and you're safe. Because it's not a part of their American territory. So you go over to Florida, you safe. A lot of slaves had a lot of common knowledge of their oppressor. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the Native Americans didn't know anything about being oppressed other than moving around and coming into Florida to be safe. So a lot of that knowledge was exchanged between the two so that way they can cohabitate and live together. And that's why they were able to fight off General Jackson for 3 wars in Florida. There were like 3 major wars in Florida because Jackson wanted Florida so bad because of all the slaves were going to Florida and banding up. They won the first war, the people of Florida, and then the second war, I think Jackson lit them up from the naval unit. They rebuild, they fought again, they had a few treaties. And then, of course, General Jackson being who General Jackson is shows that treaties mean nothing and moved them out in the Trail of Tears. So my family was a part of the Trail of Tears.
Wow.
Yeah. So I am a survivor of the Trail of Tears. I always say that. So on my mother's side. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We did her history and we just went way back.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm adopted, so I had no idea.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The only reason I even did it is because I wanted to know what my daughter was. She's my only blood relative.
Yes.
So we did the ancestry.com. I found out that I'm 84% Czechoslovakian. It's so random.
Wow.
And her ancestors were the Hessians that came over.
Wow.
That's how she got to the States.
Man.
And then tracked it all the way back to a village in Germany.
Yeah.
Where they came from.
Wow. And it was ironic. I was adopted in California, and my birth mom.
Put this on you.
No, it's okay.
Oh, you want it on you? Okay, all right. I was like, this is good stuff right here. She's like, oh, but that on me.
No, but this is really crazy.
Yeah.
I was adopted in California. My birth mom lives in Virginia. Guess where she was born?
Texas?
Bell County.
Bell County.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
Oh my God. We were dying. We were like freaking out. But yeah, so that whole ancestry thing was pretty cool. I'm glad I got to do that.
It is. I love Finding My Roots. I don't know if y'all guys ever watched that on PBS, Finding My Roots.
Yes.
Oh, Lewis, man. I've never been a Lewis Gates fan, but that is That's a good show.
Yes.
And
yes.
I just watched the one last week. Matter of fact, it's on right now, and I'm here with you guys, so I must really like you guys. So, but the one last week was really good. It was Rebecca Hall, the actor. I don't know if you know Rebecca Hall. You know, European, British accent and everything. Found out she was African American. Just blew her mind. Yeah, I just spoiled the whole show for anybody that didn't see it. I am so
Spoiler
sorry.
alert.
Yeah. But I advise anybody, if you're listening here, you see me on Facebook Live, Finding Your Roots, you watch that with Rebecca Hall, your mind will be blown. This is the whitest woman that you'll ever see in your life. But she began to find out that, whoa, her mother that left from the United States was a mulatto mix that went over to Europe, met her father, which was a big time acting coach in drama and theater. They married, had her. You know, the father's roots were in England, but the mom's roots spread all the way through Jim Crow, all the way through slavery. And even on her that side of the family had so many prominent African Americans that fought in wars from the American Revolution, fought against her dad's, her dad's family, so it's just so amazing. That was probably the best one that they had. So if you ever get a chance, I say anybody that has problems with saying, oh, I'm white and white's right, or I'm black and I'm this. You watch that show right there, you'll start second guessing yourself about a lot of things.
I did my DNA and mine went on the Gold Coast all the way to the Iberian Peninsula over here. And my mom had done her genealogy, when I was a kid. And in Mexico, there's the Chichimeca Indians. So she found out we were from them. And then they confirmed it when I did my DNA test. So I was like, man. Yeah. Speaking of genealogy, in next month, you're going to have the 2022 5th Annual African American Arts and History Showcase. It's going to be on Saturday, February 12th from 1200 to 1930, 12 p.m. to 7:30.
Yes.
At the Killeen Civic and Conference Center. And there's going to be a genealogy class there, amongst many other things.
Yeah, I've got to twist Eric's arm to get him on your podcast. You will love Eric. Okay. Eric is a genius. That is, some people were just born to do what they do, and he is a genealogy guru. Not to interrupt you, but before we get more into this, how do we get tickets? How do we get information? I'm sorry, I'm getting ready to promote Eric. Okay. So for the African American Arts and History Showcase, it's going to be February the 12th. Actually, the event starts at 9:00 with our classes. We have classes that start at 9:00. And you can get tickets on Eventbrite. Just go to African American Arts and History Showcase on Eventbrite, and then you go right in, and then you pay for the event. And then the classes are free of charge. We only have one class. I haven't talked to this young, lovely lady beside me that is going to be a paid class, and that is more of a painting class for people that want to come. The painting one's paid. Okay. Yeah. So you can also go to impactoutreach.org and click on the tab for the American Arts and History Showcase, and you can get tickets there as well. Exactly. So I love this one because this gives people a chance to come in, and for $15, you see a full show from beginning to end, and then you can sit in classes from our crocheting class. I kind of picked up crocheting a little bit on the side, been practicing because it's been so calm. You do that too? I do. Oh, man. I do. You sure we're not kidding each other?
It was out of necessity.
Now. You guys have so much in common. It was out of necessity because
growing up, we didn't have a lot.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to stay warm, do I pay $20 for a blanket, or do I $3 and then I learn how to make a blanket?
Yes.
And I learned how to make a blanket. So
wow.
And
so crazy.
Yes. Yeah. I'm doing it. To make blankets, I do it because it's just so relaxing and calm.
Yeah.
There's a lady here locally that every year I give her $400 or $500, and I get her to make my family blankets. The ladies, and they love them. And she does such a wonderful job. So I said, I need to learn how to do this, and she said, you do, because I'm old. I don't know if I'm going to be here any longer. So I was like, okay, let me teach me. Yeah. So
just to learn that, I guess you can consider it a trade, kind of. Just to pass that on to the next generation. There's so many things that are getting lost.
Yes.
With each generation, especially with technology and just the comforts that we have today. I mean, God, when I was a kid, my grandparents had a garden. And then my grandpa, he'd cut cactus. And then my grandma would cook it for him. And, everything was homemade.
Yeah.
You went to the store maybe once. That's it. And then nowadays, no, it's, what is it? Instacart and, and all that. And, nobody does anything like they do. But there's a lot of stuff lost.
So Daniel's made blankets for all the kids.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have taught the crocheting class.
See, my aunt used to make blankets for us.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, man, and it was a huge deal. So I'm like, well, nobody else is around to keep it alive.
Yeah.
So you know what? Why not?
Yeah, it's a lost talent and it's a good talent. And what I'm learning is very relaxing. It's very calm.
Washington Carver crocheted as well.
Yeah, that dude was talented.
He did.
That
was one of the things he did to relax.
Let me tell you something. Now we're talking about Black history. I love it. Let me tell you something about George Washington Carver. This guy was okay. So the history so much about George Washington Carver, but a lot of people don't know that George Washington Carver actually went. He didn't go. He didn't attend Baylor, but he went to Baylor to do a conference.
Really,
years ago, back in probably the 40s or whatever it was. But he shut down Temple because everybody wanted to look at this man get off this train.
Oh,
really?
Yes, and they didn't even realize it was him. Because he was a very small statured man, So here's this man that gets off the train and they're looking for him, but he looks like someone that's a field hand, because he was just he's just a humble guy. Right. And someone recognized it was him, and they were like, we expect to see this Booker T. Washington type character get off the train. But it was just this humble, small statured man that got off the train.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so unique about his story and how he was recruited to Tuskegee University because Booker T. Washington was probably one of the greatest negotiators of all time because Carver had a deal with Henry Ford.
Really?
Henry Ford wanted Carver and was going to give him 5 digits. Which is great money in the 1930s and 40s.
Huge, yeah. Huge money.
Booker T. Washington stole him and says, I want you to teach your own program. And I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to pay you. So he got to Tuskegee. He was expecting to see this university and he didn't see a university. He seen woods. Oh. And Booker T said, imagine a university here, So,
wow.
Because Booker T was a great visionary and Carver always had a love for teaching, he decided to do this. So what they done, Booker T. Washington, in order to build a school, they made bricks and they sold bricks out in Alabama and Montgomery and all these different places. They sold bricks and everything. And then they finally got enough money to build a school. But what's unique about his laboratory, and you can go to the record and you can read this, his laboratory was made from scraps that was there from the buildings.
Really?
So his desk that he sat on was scraps. His chair that wiggled was scraps. The lab table that always leaned to the side was all scraps. And on the lab table there, he created like 500 different inventions using potatoes and sweet potatoes and soybeans and all the peanuts and all that different stuff. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I tell my daughter the makeup that you put on the base is soybean base because it was Booker T. Washington. It was George Washington Carver that realized that soybean was the most versatile, plant that was out there. Yeah. Wow. And he even told us not to eat it, but we still eat it. So
yeah. That's like, man. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah, see? Like Carver, I like Carver too.
I'm just sitting here like, I'm just sitting back like, I'll just let y'all talk because.
Now, all this information and what else is going to be taught at the convention?
Yeah, so like I said, we have the genealogy. We're going to have crocheting. We're going to have a class called Get Unstuck with Dr. Jennings. She's going to teach you how to get unstuck in 2022. We're also going to have a book writing class from Lila Holly. She's going to teach everybody how to write a book.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to
really
have,
cool.
and we're going to also have, what else we have? You've been helping me put up. I can't remember.
Well, we're going to have a fashion show.
That's right.
That's
Young Americans fashion show,
Yes.
7 through 17. That's going to be super cool.
Yes, that's going to be good. And you haven't seen those pictures yet? Oh my goodness. When you see those pictures, for the new advertisement, you're going to be blown away. Yeah. So we have these young kids, young boys, they're going to be a part of a fashion show. Reason why I decided to do this is because there's been such a negative stigma that's been placed on brown and black boys that's out there. So what I want to do is I want to bring dress back to where it is. You know, it is okay to wear your tennis shoes and your jeans and your shirts or whatever the case may be. But this one is going to be the one where I want parents to cry and blush and say, that's my son. You know,
be proud.
Be proud of him. And I want the kids to also see that, you know, their worth sometimes mean that you got to get up and suit up for that day, you know. So, yeah. So we're going to have a lot of Clark Kents that day.
Oh,
you know?
It's going to be cool.
Yeah.
That's going to be so awesome.
Yeah, I remember growing up, I got my first pair of Stacey Adams. I still got them.
He still has them. They're in perfect
I polished them puppies all day long. I just,
You want to know something funny?
You
know, I'm kind of like a novice cobbler, man. Like, shoemaking. I love it.
What?
Yes, I do. I really, and I want to take more classes. COVID kind of slowed me down. After I finished with my doctorate, I said, golly, I got to take more classes. I love the art of making shoes.
Really?
It is such a unique thing.
So
another dying art.
Yes.
Why is there not a Rodney Duckett shoe line? Why?
I'm working on that. I'm working on.
Heard it here first. Heard it here first.
Gosh.
You know who's always been telling me to make shoes? Women.
Really?
I have a lot of friends that's Polynesian, and you know, Polynesian sisters are thick, you know, and they love like these European shoes, like the boots and stuff, but they can't put them up over their calves because their calves are like humongous. So it's like, can you make me shoes that fits around my calf, please, mother? And I was like, I could try. And they'll buy it because they want to have the little feel of the trendy wear, but they can't because.
For sure.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of women like, can you make boots? Can you do this? Can you do that?
There you go.
Yeah. Women make
You are
money.
literally the jack of all trades.
The next evolution.
I
Here
know.
we go.
I know. I'm working on it. I need to master it, you know. But yeah, I've made a lot of desert boots and things like that. I love it, man. It's if you like working with your hands, making shoes, it's relaxing.
Yeah. You got a great name for a brand. I'm just saying.
Duckets.
Yeah.
The Duckets.
That's it.
Yeah.
And some nice script, you know, make it all fancy.
Yes.
We can make that happen.
Yes, we can.
Right? I just can't make shoes, but I can do everything else.
Yeah, but the event's going to be nice. Since we have the fashion show. Also, this year's theme for Black History is health and wellness. So we're going to honor some African Americans, healthcare providers that are out on the front line. I think a lot of them are being missed because of the talk of the scientists and the injections. But what's happening at bedside with the nurses that are watching people either healing it better or the ones that they have to, you know, let the family know that everything is being done. But this is it. This is inevitable. This is going to happen. There's a lot of nurses that are stressed in that role. I have a lot of close nurse friends that I love and people that are very dear to me that are going back to a COVID unit because of a surge. So a spike in numbers. So nurses are being stretched. All the healthcare providers are being stretched, but nursing is probably one of those unsung heroes that are being stretched to the max. We have single moms that have to make arrangements for their kids because you can't shut down units and everything. So we just really want to honor them and give them a chance to walk down the aisle that day. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So has COVID affected like your events in the last few years?
Yes, it has. The African American Arts and History Showcase, we had to take a break from because the numbers were really, really bad. I'm on the fence this time around, but I ran the Kwanzaa event. No one got sick from the Kwanzaa event, working with Miss Darlene. So we're going to do the same thing that we do, require everybody to wear a mask on the events, and we're going to practice our social distancing and have the things out there. If the numbers are really, really high, then I'll make a command call because there's always going to be safety over any event we'll stop the event and we'll just bring it another time when everything calms down. So
right.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest failure that you were grateful to have gone through?
Man, I have so many of them. I don't know why. Sometimes I talk to people sometimes, they think I'm just like savant or something like that. Like things just come easy to me. I like half of
you make it seem that way.
I'm a byproduct of a lot of failure. I surely am. I mean, but one thing that I've learned about failure is I just keep stacking it up under me and to reach my goal. So that's what I do. I think my biggest one has been doubting myself. And listening to all the noise around me, what people say, telling me that I can't do this and I can't do that.
Yeah.
I think once I silence the noise that's around me and just move forward into my purpose, nowadays it doesn't bother me. So it's just listening to what people say. I've had several setbacks for the nonprofit when we first started off with it, because when we first started off, I had like 40 or 50 people, and I thought that was a good thing. I was like, man, I got all these people, and then I begin to see when you have a lot of people with different personalities, they have a problem of trying to tear things from the inside out. So
right.
I was blessed that I could start over again with the nonprofit, because it was a failure the first time around, to bring the right people into the nonprofit.
So you learned from that.
Yeah.
And now it's good.
Yeah, it's good now.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Because the people that we have in the nonprofit, they really want to be there in the nonprofit. I've had so many people from the outside come in and help. Just recently, the VA hospital, the OR, a nurse by the name of Miss Davis, got together with a bunch of her nurses, and they made getaway bags for the boys at the detention center.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and we also bought suits for them, shoes,
cool.
underwear, T-shirts. They had a bunch of gift cards. These boys were so thankful.
Yeah.
It just bust out the seams. I mean, even the warden there called and says, man, this was the best one that you've ever done. I said, actually, I didn't do it. It was, some nurses that decided they wanted to give back. So, and that was spearheaded by the Miss Davis and her OR nurses that she worked with there. She done a phenomenal job. So those are the right people you need connected to your team. She's not, like a part of the organization, but she made herself a part of the organization along with her crew. So things like that was important. And I wouldn't have been able to do that with the 40 or 50 people, because I probably wouldn't have been able to squeeze a dime out of them. Yeah. People that I don't even know, they probably donated close to $1,000 to make this happen.
What's great,
awesome.
and it is programs like that. Man, they benefited me in my youth.
Yes.
They really did. I was in some bad situations and so forth. And, especially at Christmas or things like that, people made things happen.
Yeah.
And you were talking about that, getting the suits and all that, and getting that feeling of, I don't want to say pride, but a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
And like, man, I do look good,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to wear, or do this or whatever. But I remember I got my first Walkman.
Now you date yourself now.
I got that, and it was at a Christmas party, and it was a bunch of kids and all that. But yeah, I got a Walkman. I was just thinking about that when you were talking about that.
Yeah.
But excuse me. Yeah, those programs really do help. They really, really do, and they're not forgotten.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, it doesn't take much. Not everybody can come to the detention center to talk, which is fine, because it's a little different in there, I tell people. But anytime you see us posting anything, a lot of our things go right back to the kids. I've always given it back to the kids. I've been blessed and fortunate to have a job to make money. So my nonprofit stuff is my nonprofit stuff. Everything goes back to the kids. I've been doing this since really 1999, off and on. My unit adopted that juvenile detention center, and we kept going. And the commander left, so everything changed. So people stopped coming. But because I got loyalty issues, I kept going and going and going. And I took a break, and then I would come back, and then I worked overseas for about 5 years. And when I came home from leave, I would like, hey, can I just talk to the kids? And then I think 2010 was like, you know what? I need to commit to this, because I was seeing kids that a lot of things things wasn't right in the community. You know, it was I've always had, like, kids always showed me respect, but I got to the point where kids were showing me a lot of disrespect. And and I didn't like that, because, you know, I think I'm a very nice guy. So I said, what I have to do is I have to go back in there. I have to make myself known, you know, who I am and what I can do for them in the community. And it's kind of helped me out. I'm kind of like the most corniest non-street dude, like Carlton off the Fresh Prince type guy, you know, but the kids have love for me. Like, like if I go to the mall or HEB and I see a kid and he's sagging, oh man, he'll pull him up real quick, you know?
Yeah. So we met years ago at Barnes and Noble's. And as soon as you walked in, this girl walked up to you, and it's one of my kids.
Yes.
And she was like very excited to see you, it seemed like. So.
Yes. Yeah.
That probably happens everywhere, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Just kids, just the respect of it, because one thing they do know is I'm hard on them, but I'm fair, and they know they're loved.
Right.
They know I'm going to show up for Christmas or Thanksgiving, or I'm going to be there on a court date, or even some kids that happen to go to prison.
That matters.
You know, we
that matters
stay
huge.
connected.
That matters.
Yeah. So, I have about 4 or 5 kids that, you know, we put money on their books because they're there. You know, for Christmas, we put a little money on their books, you know, and things like that, you know, because family, you know, you're incarcerated, people forget about you, you know, so.
How many kids are you supporting right now through the nonprofit, do you think?
Right now, during the nonprofit, for 7, 9, 12, probably about 15 kids, close to 15 kids. Yeah.
That's so cool.
So
now let's talk about the Breaking New Grounds Reentry and Transitional Program.
Yes.
I was reading about that on the website, and man, I loved that idea.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah. The problem what we have with some of the kids here is some of them either age out of the system, or family members don't want them back home.
Right.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do with the Transitional Center is give them some firm footing from anywhere from 60 to 120 days. During that firm footing, what we'll do is the intake evaluation on them to see where they are as far as graduation or GED. We want to put something in their hands. And then from there, we want to go ahead and give them some form of placement, like working with HEB, Walmart distribution, you know, it could be McLean's Industry or somewhere outside of here where we can get a child a job. And then while we get a child a job, we also have liaisons that will be working with the children to make sure that they're paying their bills, they're taken care of, anything they need so they don't fall into the system.
Yeah.
Now, basically what we're going to be is surrogate parents, you know, for a lot of kids. And that's where the Transitional Center kind of comes in. And it's something that is needed because there's a lot of kids that fall through the cracks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of kids that fall through the cracks. So
now, if anybody wants to support that or any of your endeavors, how do they do that?
impactoutreach.org. They can go in there. They can go to the contact segment, fill out the information, drop me a little note that's in there, and then we reach out to them and get in contact with them. Yeah.
And that's I.m.p.a.c. outreach.org.
.org. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Wow, that's really good. And your principles that I saw, there was a couple of them that really.
His motivational quotes every morning.
Yes, there was a bunch on there, but to encourage others along with myself that our purposes is not a struggle, but assignment.
Yes.
I like that.
It's beautiful.
Yes. No matter the results, you control the outcome is a slogan that I came up with. A lot of times people have outcomes. Like the outcome is a consequence of this is I'm in trouble now, I'm in juvie.
Right.
But that's not your results. You know, that's just a small little slither of why you're here. Like, what narrative are you going to create after this?
Right.
Yeah. So we show people the different narratives that they can create through visions that other people have had. You know, we talk about great people that spend time in prison and the things that they accomplish and they come up with that. So we try to teach them no matter the results, you control those actual outcomes that's there. I mean, however you want to gear yourself, it's totally up to you because you're navigating this. Sometimes there's choppy water, man. Sometimes there is.
Yeah.
You know, but then you ultimately have that outcome. Yeah.
What's that saying? It's not when one door closes, the other one opens. It's not that. It's how long the hallway is to the next door.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
You just got to keep on pushing.
Yeah.
Another one was empower myself through the belief that I am born to create or produce something.
Yes.
That totally wipes out any kind of, I'm nobody. It totally wipes it out.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. And we're all born with a purpose. There's something inside of us that makes us unique, and there's an assignment that we have to do. This world will not be able to be better until you're able to release what's inside of you.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody has it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And my favorite, correct my ways and permit others the latitude to provide the corrections needed for my self-improvement.
Yes.
That's a hell of a statement.
Yeah, it is.
I love that. I do. I read that. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Sometimes when I read it, I was like, yeah, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's deep. It's like, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to follow Rodney. He's got some good stuff in there. He really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, I needed to hear that today,
Yeah, it's so much garbage on social media. So what I try to do is try to put something that's out there. And I think the amazing thing about it is I could be grocery store. I'm nowhere near a celebrity or nothing like that, but I could go to like H-E-B and be stuck at H-E-B for 3 hours because I'll run into people. I've had people before say, hey man, let me show you something. And then they show me something. He said, man, I like that. And I can't even remember when I posted it or anything like that. But then they have a compelling story behind it. It's like, man, man, it was my mom's anniversary and this came up. When you said that, man, reminded me of my mom, man. So I pulled out my mom's pictures and I reevaluated myself and said, what did my mom wanted me to do? And they said, man, you know what? I'm going to school now just because of that. I just needed that. And I was like, dang, I didn't know that I'd done that. I just posted. So I don't even know why I posted it. It was just, maybe it was just up on my matrix to post that day. Yeah. So, but everything's intended purpose. So
I love the general message that all this brings. I love it. Light the fire inside, keep it lit, keep going, forward progress, And then that change comes from inside.
Yes.
It really does. Yes. You can't go to Starbucks and order, I like a cup of change or I like no miracles come in bottles,
Yeah, exactly.
They don't. So,
yeah.
Giving back is so important. I think it's, people just need to do that more often, because it's so important. I love it.
It is. Definitely.
You want to ask your famous question?
I do. I ask everyone that comes in. It's not scary. But for you, it's actually reverse because you work nights and you sleep days, right?
Yes.
Normally I say, what is your morning routine? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is your wake up routine?
My wake up routine. Depends on my mood, but I do like to ground myself when I wake up. So one of the things I do, I have a spot that I go to and I normally walk. And it helps me kind of ground myself. It helps me kind of center my day. Like prior to me coming here, I went to my spot for 15 minutes to kind of center myself before I came here. So I think, solitude is a very good thing. When I talk to people that are religious, I hear a lot of praying to God, but I don't hear a lot of meditation. When you pray to God, you speak to God, but when you meditate, God speaks to you. So I use that time to see what the subtle voice in the universe is telling me to do or not to do, or maybe he just doesn't want me to know anything. He just wants me to sit in silence a lot. So I like to sit a lot in silence to kind of think about my day. And I find out when I don't do that, man, I have an alter ego, like this is David Banner, but then I turn green and start ripping my clothes off. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So, yeah.
Never picture that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't. A lot of people that know me be like, oh, yeah. He's like a little mini Hulk. You better watch out when he gets upset. But the older that I got now, I notice it's not attractive. I have an old man just kind of like Hulk out on people. So I try to calm down, a little bit. But no, just centering myself, spending time to myself is very important. Yeah. So
like before work, that's what you make sure to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And if that doesn't work, I like going to the gym and hulking out on weights. And stuff.
There you go. So,
yeah.
What's been the biggest struggle that you see kids in juvenile hall or locked up coming out? What's been the major barrier, if any?
Major barrier is the complete transition back into the community. And on top of that transition, feeling a need to have help.
Okay.
So And when I say that, and this is no shotgun blast, if there's any teachers that's watching, be mindful of your actions around the kids that come back into your classroom. A lot of them are coming back with the intentions of wanting to do good, but that changes in the first 10 minutes in class when they're singled out.
Yeah.
Maybe someone's talking to them that they haven't seen in a long time, and they just turn around briefly and now they're singled out,
Right.
For that, so just be very mindful of that, because a lot of times kids come back and say, Mr. D, they didn't even want me in class to begin with. Before I even sat down, she said, you do one thing and you're gone.
Yeah, I mean, that's setting them up for failure from the start.
Yeah. So that's been the biggest thing for them, to truly transition back and have the framework that they need, because a lot of times they are already singled out. They're already ostracized. So, and kids make mistakes. Here's the deal about it, guys. Kids make mistakes. We all make mistakes. There's things that happen. We're adults. We make mistakes. I'm not saying that kids don't need consequences. Yes, they do, but they have to be taught. They have to learn. Juvenile detention center serves a specific purpose, but not all kids in the detention center need to be there.
Right.
that I can guarantee you. I've met some kids like, really, you just flipped over a table and acted a fool because you didn't know how to channel your emotions. You didn't have someone that was there to say, let's take a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Let's just take a walk. Go out here. Let's scream. Oh, here's a bag. Just knock it out. So I met one principal. It was in Houston. It was a private school, and a lot of his kids that were there, some of them behavior problems, but they loved him because in his office, it was a punching bag.
Yeah.
He's like,
definitely.
Yeah. I'd rather for you to punch this bag than to punch me or someone else.
We had that at, we had a boys club.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could make it there, because you had to go through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you could make it there was all kinds of obstacles, a lot of money to pass up to get to the boys club, and a lot of pressure. But if you can make it there, they had weights, they had people that would listen.
Yes.
And it was such, it was uncomfortable, and it was so out of place because it was safe. And, and then you leave, and then the chaos is outside, which is almost normal.
Yes.
And so it was weird because you didn't know how to react. These were new feelings, new emotions, and but there was no pamphlet that said, hey, when you walk in here, this is how it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you're so used to not trusting, and then you come into a situation like that, and it's like, well, if I trust, what's going to happen?
Uh-huh.
And there's nobody to walk you through. But if you have people to walk you through that, that's priceless. It really is.
Something I've always wanted to do is teach like the older kids how to do web design and graphics. I've always wanted to do that, especially kids that are in that situation. Always wanted to do that. Or even like the older ones, even the adults that are like getting out entrepreneurship, because if they have felonies, it's hard to find a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why not teach them to start a business? Chances are, everyone has a talent some way, shape, or form, so I've always just really been really interested in that. And I reached out to Misty Biddick, from Where Central Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to her about that a couple years ago. But I would love to do that. So if that's something you ever want me to do, I would love to.
I have no problem with that whatsoever. We're looking at doing different things throughout the summer to introduce kids to things. We kind of slow down with COVID and everything, but we normally introduce kids to different trades and stuff like that. Like my daughter personally, she's into graphics. I'd love for her to sit down and talk to you. She's trying to figure out what school she should go to and all this other different stuff. Me, that's like fish out of water. I've been medical all my life and all these other different things, but not graphics. I pay you for my graphics. So, because I'll mess some stuff up. I get on PowerPoint and just do things I shouldn't do. But definitely what you're saying, that is doable. We can do an introduction this summer with a few kids, just teach them the basics.
Yeah, it's usually kids that are like gamers, or they like to be in front of the computer, or art, people that like art because it's computer art.
Yeah.
So, but anyways,
Yes, ma'am.
Keep in mind.
Do not have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That's some really good work that's going on here. It really is. No, there's so much opportunities and people just don't care nowadays.
Yeah.
They really don't. It's not my problem. If I don't see it,
Yeah.
it's not my problem, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It's so funny. I think right around the time, you know, the death of Trayvon Martin, that really kind of opened my eyes to the sense where I can blame whoever I want to blame. But if I'm not in the ball game suited up playing,
right,
then I'm wasting everybody's time. I'm not productive.
Right.
So I may not be out front all the time and speaking and talking at all the engagements that people have, but behind the scenes, you know, my organization is putting in the work.
Right.
Yeah, because I take what I do very seriously, and I feel that anytime that there's a kid that is stealing or fighting or there's some issues or whatever the case may be, I feel that that's a battle that I've lost because they don't know who I am, you know, and there's resources that's there for me. And even if I don't have the resources, I'll call around till I can make some things happen. Or Miss Casper will call around till we can make, or Mr. Terrence will call around. We'll make something happen. We've always, even if we had to say, okay, guys, we need to come up with $50 a piece and we need to make sure this kid is in a hotel room for a couple of days until we can figure it out. Right. You know, so those are the things that we do. I wish we had the ability to do more, but you know, we do what we can with what we have. So,
right.
Yeah.
And again, if anybody wants to contribute or help out, go to impactoutreach.org.
Yes, sir. Yeah, go right there, and we'll take whatever you can give us.
You remind me a lot. When I was a kid, we had a reach program. I forgot what it stood for, but there was a guy, Mr. Buffo, and he would do the same things. If you could make it there, you know, or you got in trouble or something, that's who you would call.
Yeah.
And they would be there, but with the stipulation, don't be lazy. You got to put in the work. If we're going to do this for you, you also got your part.
Yeah.
And you got to handle it, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And there's so many success stories. I mean, just listening to you speak, you're a success story from that. You knew where the safe haven was. You went, you connected yourself to it, and you blossom and you're here. You know, you have a beautiful home, a beautiful family. You know, you're a workaholic from what I understand. Yeah. So, and that's a tangible trait that is not even there. A lot of kids think money still grows on trees, you know, and I try to teach my own kids like, no, man, it's a grind out there. You really got to get on that grind and you got to know how to invest your money, save your money, and also enjoy life as well too. You know, there's so many success stories. I watch a lot of podcasts and I love hot boxing. I don't know if you watch that. And
no.
It's Mike Tyson. He has a little podcast.
Oh yes. Okay.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah. You know,
he's got some people on there.
Yeah. Again, there's a lot. It's a funny podcast, but there's a lot of seriousness that comes about. And one thing that I can't even remember the person that he was interviewing. I either he was a football player or maybe he was a hip hop artist. I can't even remember the person, but they were talking, just general talking. Mike Tyson said, "Hey man, you know, I was in like special ed," and then that guy's like, "I was in special ed too," and he's like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Man," he said, "You know what? I used to like get off the bus. You know, I was a football player, special ed. Get off the bus, and my girlfriends would be waiting on me. You know, I was like the coolest guy in special ed." And Mike Tyson's like, "Yeah, I was in special ed too." And then Mike Tyson kind of paused and he said, "You know what, man?" He said, "I don't know why there's not special education centers named after me." I'm a success story, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
I made it to the very height.
Yeah.
You know, and I fell to the very low. And I'm still resurfacing again somewhere in the middle. Yeah. So I'm a success story for most kids in special education to say, I want to be like Mike, you know? And he was kind of making a joke out, but it made a lot of sense. There's a lot of people that was special education. You know, and it has nothing to do with celebrities, but, you know, Thomas Edison was special education.
Right.
He didn't talk to, he's like 10 years old, you know, and now we're running all this electricity based off of him. Imagine that, a kid that was in special education that was mute, that, you know, doctors want to lock Thomas Edison up, you know, but mom said, "You ain't locking my child up. He's got something to do in the world."
Right.
And then he was smart enough to know that everybody was calling him special education or whatever names they called him back then, that special education to have him lead him to never give up on electricity for us.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Just imagine if he was locked up.
Yeah.
This would be candlelight right now.
Yeah.
10 cans.
We do have candles. We do have
a fire pit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what's weird is some of the guys I grew up with didn't know how to read.
Yeah.
Some of the smartest guys I knew could read a room like it was just on a billboard.
Mm-hmm.
Knew everything.
Yes.
Just did not know how to read.
Yes.
And then later when they learned, man, they were just machines.
Yes.
It
That's
just kept going. So, wow. That's,
It's unique, man. It's a lot that's out there. So I commend you for what you're doing, you and your wife, what you guys are putting out. I mean, it's really special. I'm very humble and elated just to be on the show. I mean, she's been saying, I gotta get you two together. He's so busy. You're so busy. So I'm glad that,
I thought that was an impossible
Venus
task.
and Jupiter aligned with each other and we were able to be here today. So.
I know. So cool.
What's your proudest success story so far? What is your jewel?
Golly.
What makes you smile at night when the room's dark?
There's so much to his story.
Wow.
What is one that just sticks out?
That's a tough one. Man, I can go several different ways with that one. I guess sometimes to see my own kids do the things that my mom taught me to do.
Okay.
I remember an incident when my daughter was in high school. She decided to help out a blind child. I didn't ask her, but she volunteered in the class to say, I'll make sure he gets to all of his classes.
That's
and she held his hand and she walked him to class. And that was powerful to me to hear that. I was like, wow, that is something else. Yeah.
Wow.
So, to see that. And another beautiful thing was our orphanage that we had in Ethiopia to now these kids are all grown, to see that they're actually doing the trades that they wanted to do. Some want to be school teachers, some want to be police officers, some want to join the army, all that different stuff. But to see that these kids, that what little we were doing here in America and what we were sending over to Ethiopia, those kids actually are doing decent for themselves. I would say at least 90% of them that I stay in contact with, they're doing decent.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that really makes me feel good. Yeah, it does, because starting that orphanage was something that was very small, but it has such a great impact, and sometimes I hear how much of an impact you were. And I was just like, I just felt it in my heart to do it. I didn't want anything out of it. Just was hoping that I could help out. I find out that I helped out extremely well for some of them. So it's amazing, because it was like $290, $300 a month that I would try to raise for that, because the average cost of living is like $2 or $3 a day or something like that. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So
wow,
that's so amazing.
Yeah,
such a great story.
Before we wrap this up, what is one question you wish I would have asked you? And if I did, how would you have answered it?
Oh, man, you give me these good old brain busting questions. My goodness. Let's see. Maybe if I wasn't doing what I was doing, what would I be doing? Type thing.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't doing the nonprofit stuff and nursing, what would I be doing? So
what would you be doing?
You know what? I would truly love to just travel. I would love to have a documentary of traveling to places and meeting people.
Oh, that would be
like the History Channel.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I would make it so user friendly for people.
Oh,
yeah.
that would be.
Yeah. So yeah. I love traveling. I love going to different countries. I love, embracing other cultures. I think it's the importance with it. I think sometimes in America, things get so taboo where it's like, oh, no, we're Americans. They're like, okay, yeah, you could be Americans, but you can still learn other cultures. And I show you the greatest example of this. Okay. When everything was happening with Corona, the world was upside down.
Right.
Asian people were persecuted.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
But I want to make sure everybody understands none of the martial arts enrollment dropped.
Really?
Nope.
Oh, that's interesting.
You would have thought that would have been the first thing.
Yeah, none of it dropped.
I didn't even think
people
about
were
that.
still registering their kids for martial arts because it's a form of discipline. And a lot of martial arts come from that African Asian persuasion, influence type thing. But kids are still doing martial arts. Now, Western Front, martial arts didn't come from the United States. It came from East. Mm-hmm. So again, we're still teaching martial arts. And we still hold that to be a certain form of discipline that we like. Yeah. So because martial arts is one of those things where you can have a child as young as 3 years old learn how to stand, to defend himself at that age.
Right.
But it didn't stop because of, all of the Chinese type of things that was going on.
All the propaganda. Oh, man.
It's still there.
The China virus.
Yeah. Mixed martial arts. The whole thing still survived. UFC still survived. All of that. All the martial arts that was there still survived. Based off of that. And I think that's when you go to different countries and you talk about culture and you show the importance of why things are the way they are, you have people embellish it and understand culture. So
even when you look back, when the world was talking to each other, you had huge advancements in mathematics, science, everything. It was just, a melting pot of ideas for the whole world.
Yeah.
And it was just a golden era. And then I don't know what happened.
Yeah, global trade is nothing new.
Right.
I tell people this all the time. Like when I was with UCLA and we were working in Aksum, one of the things that I found out that in Aksum, Ethiopia, Africa, that there was trade. And it was unique trade because there were certain things that you can't find in Africa that you can find in modern day Iraq. There were certain things that you couldn't find in modern day Iraq that you can find in Asia. So when you're looking at gold all the way from the Kushite kingdom, it's all the way into Asia. Well, there's no gold in Asia. It had to go somehow be commuted there. If it's by water or if it's by elephant, all the way that's there. So you'll still see trade. You even when you read the Bible, you still hear of trade. Egypt is trading with Israel, Lebanon for cedar because there's no cedar that actually grows in Egypt. So you begin to see these different things. So I began to find out that there was major global trade, and Ethiopia and places like Uganda and Kenya, they were one of the most powerful kingdoms that were making these humongous trades around the world, So, and you find history of Asian settlers in Africa as well too. So it's the craziest thing in the world, and we think it's all kind of new. It's like, okay, well, there was Africa and there was Asia and there was Europe. No, everybody was trading with everybody.
Some of the explanations that they give to try and explain things is like, come on.
Yeah, I know. It's far-fetched.
There was a show, he was a geologist, and he'd always talk about America's history is not what you've learned, and it's different. And he would go places. He even went to Brownwood and talked about Jesse James was reportedly died there under the name of Henry Ford. And it was all linked to the Knights of the Golden Circle. So in Brownwood, Texas, and they were raising money. So Jesse James was robbing to raise money for the Knights of the Golden Circle so that they could build a new South in Mexico and then rebuild and then come back.
Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah. Texas has got a lot of interesting history. Texas is so funny. If you really study history, because they make you study, and then you really go a little bit more in depth and you talk to historians, true historians, people that's going to tell you the truth, you'll begin to find out so much. I laugh sometimes when I see things and I see people so politically motivated, and I see a lot of symbolism that they have and stuff like that. And the funny, this is not to jab at anybody that's part of a political affiliation or anything, but sometimes I see the cannon, and the cannon is very funny to me because the cannon was borrowed from the Mexican army and it wasn't given back. So now you say, come and take it. But we have to be careful with some of the symbolism that we put out because that's a form of being a pirate or a thief, So, and when I see people, I say, do you understand the history of that? I mean, do you tell your kids to go take something from someone and don't give it back. No, I teach my kids how to be upstanding Christians. Can you just read that history and then have a conversation with me? And I've had people say, I didn't know that. And I was like, exactly. So sometimes we have to be careful with symbolism and the messages that it puts out. It may seem like it's a stronghold for affiliation group, but you're promoting something that you're just handing down. But Texas is so interesting. One of the things, do we have time or am I over time?
We're good. We're good.
One of the things I learned about Texas, and this relates to my family as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So, because we know Texas is Mexico, and because of the war, it was lost and all that other different stuff. So when my family came into Oklahoma and they landed with the Sooners and they got their land, when they first landed on the sector of land, the people that was there, the government realized they made a mistake because you put a bunch of Black and Indians that was on mineral right land. They didn't know it was mineral right land. So federal government wanted those mineral rights. So they had to pay those people, which were how the money came in for Black Wall Street, because it was mineral rights. So, but then there was a lot of different tribal warring that was going on at that particular time, because if you put Choctaw and Creek and Cherokee together and Chickasaw, you're going to have issues. So there was a band called the Muskogee Indians that were Seminoles. They went south because they heard that Mexico was free to the slaves. So they went south. They got into what is known as Texas. They started realizing that, wait a minute, we're coming through and there's slavery in Texas. It's not supposed to be slavery. This is leased land by Mexico. They pushed further south and they hit a post where it's a Santa Ana post. And they're like, hey, we're coming all the way from, this place called Oklahoma. We passed through Mexico. There's slavery here. We want to go south into Mexico. We want to have an establishment that was there. So they went and they created an establishment called the Muskogos, which is the same as Muskogee, Oklahoma. It's the same people that celebrates Juneteenth as well, too. A lot of people don't realize that. So there are a bunch of African people that are stuck right there in Mexico, which you probably know some of this yourself too, that's stuck there in Mexico that celebrates Juneteenth. But reason why they were coming into Mexico, there was a president by the name of Vicente Guerrero, which was a mulatto, half Black, half Spaniard president. And 3 reforms that he done here in Mexico, Texas was, number 1, he freed all the slaves because his mom was African. She was a slave. Number 2, he made education free. At that time, education was not free in the United States. And number 3, he put his face on a coin system to prove that he done everything like any ruler would do. Yeah. And that's the thing that sometimes get buried with the Texas-Mexican Revolution. It's not the fact that Mexico was telling Texas, well, we'll change your way of life. Mexico was like, slavery is banned and you guys got slaves here on leased property. Now you're telling us how to run ourselves. It's like, well, they're happy doing what they're doing. It's like, it doesn't matter. You can't do it. Now the war begins. And the war began for the liberation of slavery. That's basically what it was. Slavery was the issue at that time. And I know this because, when you get down to talking to historians and stuff like that, they said there's a truth behind a lot of what's happening here in Texas, and there's a lie. And the lie is it wasn't because people were being pressured. The lie is because slavery was enacted on Mexican territory. Which was
a lot of layers.
Yes.
A lot of layers. When you get to the front door, it's a whole different scene. But when you open it, there's a lot. There was a lot I learned about the Alamo too.
Yes.
From what I had learned in school and all that. And then I get there and then they have the reenactors there and they're talking about what was really going on at that time and why this, why that. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I read up on it a little bit more and it's like, okay. All right. The industries and the work that was going on and how that affected politics and all that. So we weren't taught that.
No, you won't.
Even in high school, like the Vietnam War was a paragraph.
Yes.
It's like, come on, you got to be kidding me,
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And I always say when you're studying history, you're studying his story. So we need to start studying our story, you know, and I think it makes things a little bit better because a lot of time history is tampered. There's a lot of stuff is being tampered with now because when history is out there in its natural form, there's a lot of questions that has to be answered. And when you have questions that needs to be answered, it becomes uncomfortable. My first visit to the African American Arts and History Museum that was in Washington, D.C., I was there doing the nursing caucus that was there. And I wanted to see the museum. Never had a chance. I had a few hours. I knew it was big, so I put my walking shoes on, and I was going to hit the things that I didn't know. So I remember I was down in the belly of the ship. When you go in, you go all the way to the bottom, and then you go back to the top. And there's layers of things that you study there. So I was at the bottom. And it was a big tour group, and I was trying to hit the areas and stuff. And I remember there was this little white kid and his mom. And the little white kid was like asking normal questions and stuff like that. So when they got to the thing of slavery and why they were on the ships and how they was arranged on the ship, he turned to his mom and said, "Why would we do something like this to Bobby? Bobby is my friend, and I wouldn't do anything like that."
Oh,
so
man.
Now the mom is very uncomfortable. And she said, "Well, it wasn't us." She said, "Yes, it is. Look, he looks just like me." So Bobby, so this little kid is having this conversation. He's talking about his boy, and his mom's very uncomfortable. She's trying to educate him, but he's very uncomfortable. And people are trying to explain to the boy. But they were trying to explain to the boy, but also lie to the boy in the same fact, because the boy was smart enough to realize that a certain skin complexion was oppressing a good friend of his that was in school.
Oh,
so
it's the pure nature compared to
So when you see these things and how things are being educated and how people are being re-educated on things, it's very, very scary. I say lay everything lie the way they lie, so that way people can make their own judgments about things and people can understand certain things. That's why I do my events. That's why the African American Arts and History Showcase is so important, because we do a lot of educational stuff, but we also speak about the history component. Not in the history component to say, okay, you're white, we're going to make you feel uncomfortable. But the history component is like, you've been lied to, we've been lied to. So let us give you our truth, our version, so that way you can better understand who we are. That's how we come together better. Because a lot of times people don't know. They are sitting at the dinner table and their father says one thing that he heard at work to describe what Black people are. And then the little boy that's sitting on the corner is like, well, that's not like him. His family is good. His mom always feeds me when I'm there. Like, what are you talking about? So,
Or if you see someone you look up to, and then all of a sudden you hear something that's like, what do you do? But if history flowed like in its natural state, and I've talked about this with other people, and they'd say, wow, society's not ready for that. It's like, why? Why is it not? I know the victor is always telling a story, but at the same time, if history was left to be for what it was, minus ego, minus whatever, what would that look like? What would it be from point A to point Z? What would that timeline actually look like compared to what we're taught?
Yeah, it'd be a lot of advancement.
Yeah.
Going back to that Rebecca Hall thing, if you ever get a chance to watch that,
I can't wait.
My Roots. Everybody there, Finding My Roots. You can go to PBS. You can look it up. I think it might be free. You might have to pay like $5. It's going to be the best $5 you ever pay to see Rebecca Hall. She was like shocked, because she's a white woman and she's always classified herself as that. But she never knew that her mom was mulatto, and then there was a different history to all of that, and it was so moving for her that she was trying to reconnect from 1,000 souls away how this all relates to her and how it relates to her family and her kids and different things like that. And it just shows you that we are all just the same people. That's all it is.
You just never know. In fact, I know someone who swore they were Puerto Rican enough so they got a tattoo. They did their DNA, not a drop. Not a drop.
And that's so sad. Oh my God.
But it was what they were told their whole life. So, that's what they went on, and then they did it, and it's like, what do you do?
Exactly.
I'm looking up Rebecca Hall right now.
It's that was so powerful. I was They done one with Pharrell Williams too, the musician. His was really good too. They put those out. So there's so much information around the world. It's just crazy. I think the most exciting thing that I've seen, and this might tickle your fancy a little bit, is you're familiar with the I.m.p.a.c heads, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're huge heads, and they're just carved out of stone. Huge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like massive.
So geologists find out that rock is not indigenous to that area, meaning that rock was brought to that area. So through the studies and genealogy and everything like that, they said this rock comes from somewhere else.
Did they know where it came from?
Ethiopia. So I have a picture of me in Ethiopia with all my kid that the Mexican government sent over to Ethiopia.
Send it back home.
Just that head. Yeah.
Wow.
It shows you now Ethiopia is East Africa. So how they went around Somalia, the port, all South Africa, and then landed there, taking that middle passage from there is just amazing. So it shows you that there was some form of travel that was there. And it also shows you the connection of Haile Selassie, which was the emperor, in Ethiopia and Mexico, because there was a lot of trade and commerce with Ethiopia and Mexico. People don't know this, but it just blew me away. And this was in the 50s and 60s. You know, he made major trades with Mexico. So at that time, major trade with Mexico. Wow. Yeah. So that is it just blows my mind. Yeah. Blows my mind all the time. So
you just never, when we get to wherever we're going, I hope all this is answered. Yeah. You know, if there's anything, you know, see loved ones and all that, but I hope, you know, hey, kick me some knowledge or something.
Oh yeah, man. You're there, man. I enjoy myself. I can keep going on. I know you guys got kids and dinner and all that other different stuff. So we'll be here 1 o'clock in the morning just chatting away. So
when we have a podcast to record, I usually cook dinner at like 3.
Oh, there you go. See, she's got it.
There's a guy I know that we all need to take a couple hours, relax, and yeah. So if anybody wants to get a hold or contribute to any of these great things going on, go to impactoutreach.org, I.m.p.a.c, outreach.org. And then don't forget, February 12th, starting at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, 9 o'clock is our first class.
All the way to 7:30 at the Killeen Civic and Conference Center for the 5th Annual African American Arts and History Showcase.
Yes.
That'll be something. The genealogy class, before I wrap this up, are they going to go as far back as to the tribes? And then specifically, or?
So what Eric is going to do is going to initiate everybody into starting the genealogy. So what he'll do is sit there and show them how they can get started. Mm-hmm. Because most African Americans, they'll find that their genealogies kind of encompasses slavery. So it's a little bit more different and unique because they have to go shift through so many records, up to about 1950, 40, you might can get into the census type stuff and look through certain things. But then from there, it gets you have to get into marriage and military drafts. And then sometimes you have to go into property, because slaves were property. So it gets very, very confusing. And sometimes they're not even listed by names, Yeah, so you have to, they're listed like property, bull and heifer, you see that a lot, but they might have H beside them for human or something like that, so it gets very confusing. And that's why Henry Gates, he does a good job with that. Henry Louis Gates, he does a good job with that because, he's got a whole team, but he teaches you how to navigate that. And we have another lady. I'm not 100% sure if she's going to be there or not. She shows you what you do with that stuff. That's Miss Wanda Gunther. Mm-hmm. She does a lot of keepsake shadow boxing type stuff, and she shows you what you can do if you have draft cards and marriage certificates and stuff like that.
Cool.
How you can put that up in the house and it means something. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's going to be an amazing event.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's on February 12th, 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Yeah.
That's a Saturday. All right. It was great having you on the show. It really was.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome back anytime.
Oh, thanks, my man.
And again, if you guys want to contribute to anything, impactoutreach.org, and you can be found on Facebook as well.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Facebook, Rod Duckett on Facebook, or you can go to Impact Outreach on Facebook. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Are you on Instagram or anything else?
You know,
Twitter?
I am. I'm just lazy with it. So I'll probably have to get a class from your wife. It's been so long. So, yeah.
We got to get you on TikTok.
Oh, man. I do have a TikTok account.
You do?
I get lost on TikTok sometimes.
I know. Scrolling.
Yeah. I was like, man, this is interesting. So
if anybody has any questions or any kind of any questions on today's episode or for Rodney, go to Barely Rested Media at on Facebook.
It's been a long podcast.
Yeah, Barely Rested Media on Facebook, and we'll get any questions to him. Thank you for listening. This is the Barely Rested podcast.
Peace out.